Hello everybody, welcome back to City Skylines, and today we're finally going to be setting up our transportation systems because our traffic is just horrible. I did set up some time traffic lights, but still, we are really in need of some sort of transportation. Also, some of you have said that the sped up footage is making you a bit sick. Really do apologize. I tried to cut out as much of it as I can in this episode, so please let me know how that goes. Also, this video is a bit longer than usual. It's because there's a lot to cover and I wanted to discuss as much as I can. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do here is clear our traffic using Traffic Manager Present Edition. This is so we don't have any unprecedented traffic jams if you're using something like trams, and so citizens have a chance to refresh their paths and get rid of any unnecessary traffic immediately. So the reason why I'm choosing tram first is because the tram system cuts straight through the city, which is where the majority of the traffic is, and it's the traffic I want to target first. Also, it's because everything's in place for it, which, might as well take advantage of that. So before I actually make any lines, I'm going to place down this end-of-the-line tram depot everywhere where I want a line to end. It's on the workshop, and it's really nice because it makes sure that the trams can turn around very nicely. Now, the way that I place my tram lines is, if you're using a grid like me, every 2 rectangles. This is a sort of good guideline because you don't want your stops too frequent, and this is a good spacing. Too frequent stops create too much traffic and leave citizens with less of a choice as what they want to use, such as cars or other forms of transport. So it's always good to have a good amount of space between your stops. And now all I'm going to do is just create a bit of a loop. So as you can see, I finished creating my loop, and this dialog box immediately came up. If you're not using Improved Public Transport 2, just like me, you're probably not going to get a lot of the options like I have. Like, for example, the ability to pick the depot you want your trams to come out of, or the types of vehicles you want on the line. What I did is add 8 vehicles with a decently high capacity to my line because I know that a lot of people are going to be using it, but I don't want trains to come too often. You still want to have some sort of wait time in between when the next vehicle comes, otherwise you'll just be constantly losing money because you have so many vehicles that aren't being used on your line. The next mode of transport that I go into is trains, and they behave just like trams, except for the fact that you don't need essentially a turnaround point for them. There are diamond crossings at every station, and they can just switch to whichever track they want to from there. This makes them pretty nice and versatile because you don't need to have so much more infrastructure than is really needed for it. If you're going to be using trains in your city, I really do recommend you space out your stations quite a bit at just key areas. This is because traffic will probably be the highest to those key areas, and instead of having people drive that huge distance there, they'll all just go from one station to another, and they won't have to go through everything else. In short, it's just a shortcut, really, for them, and it's faster, and you make money. Sticking to the sort of space theme I have going on, if you haven't noticed, I just call this the Mars line, and color it purple, because why not? I can do that. I also did choose the color because when choosing a train, which I actually chose the wrong one here, I'll change it later. If it's color changing, then whatever line color you chose, that's the color that will be assigned to that vehicle. So that's exactly why I chose this, and you can always change the color later on. So I want my trains to be purple, that's fine. You want your trains to be green, go ahead. So now we're getting into the sort of main transit hub area where we'll have buses, taxis, and we'll have a metro nearby, I'm pretty sure, and also there are tram stops in that corner right next to that intersection. There are tram stops. It's actually pretty simple. A lot of people tend to overcomplicate transit hubs, but if you look at them, they usually are quite simple. All I did here is I placed down this bus terminus, then I put down a depot, some taxi stands, and some paths to connect my citizens from the tram stops to my actual bus station. Because a bus-only road doesn't have zoning, I just chose this one with bus lanes on the side, and I disabled cars and trucks so we don't have any unnecessary traffic going on there. So if you haven't played Cities Skylines in a while, there's now the ability to create assets with transparent textures, like glass. And this is one of those assets. It's a bus station with four areas for stops, I think, and has a glass roof, and it looks really nice. And I don't remember exactly who it's by, but if you just search up bus stop or glass bus stop, I'm more than sure that you'll find it on the Steam Workshop. I don't mess around with the bus depot too much, just keeping it relatively simple. This old bus depot fits my theme pretty well. You can also get a smaller one, I think, off of the workshop, but I was fine with this one, and as you can see, it's the same size as it's the same width as my bus station, so I'm just gonna go with that. And I've placed down my paths and my taxi stands, and as well as the taxi depot, because you do need a depot for that. And you can see that I have those tram stops right there, equal distance from the intersection, and that'll be really nice because citizens can go straight from the stop right away to the hub, the station. And now we're on to the bus lines, which I honestly hate the most out of all the forms of transport in City Skylines. Buses, to me, are the most annoying. For me, it's just always been really hard to create a line that covers everywhere you want perfectly, and sometimes they can just be so messy, like the bus doesn't go where you want it to, because it'll go onto the side of the road, the very side, and then it can't turn right or it can't turn left because it's on the side of the road already. And in general, it's just so annoying. What I like to do is just create a zigzag. It just kind of goes through the main residential areas, where I want it to go. And maybe it's not that realistic, but it works, and I honestly think it's fine, so that's what I'm going to do. I also try to space them a little bit less than trams. Sometimes more, sometimes less. It really depends on where your stops are, where you're building them, what sort of area, how dense the area is. But because it's so dense and we have so many people living in one area, for me it was important to space them out pretty close, because you have all these people and sometimes they're not all gonna fit on one bus, so you always want to have another stop there for them. So once you've completed your line, it should be known that buses are a little different than other forms of transport. Usually you create longer lines with them and they span larger areas, so you will need more vehicles, and it's kind of hard to guess how many vehicles you'll need, especially because different buildings will have different amount of people. Sometimes they're less dense, so I just keep it on budget control, and then if I have too many or too little, I can just use the vehicle count modifier slider at the bottom. So like I said, my residential area is really dense, and because of that, there's a lot more people who need more transport. So instead of using a single-decker bus, I'm using a double-decker bus. It's the ADL Enviro 500 Go Transit bus. Has a way higher capacity, but basically takes up the same amount of space. So might as well use that. Here you can see what I was talking about earlier. I chose the wrong train. So with improved public transport, that's how easy it is to just switch vehicles. I immediately did it in probably like 10 seconds. So while we're on the subject of buses, I decided to try out this idea I found somewhere online. Don't remember where I saw it a while ago. But basically it works like an out-of-city shuttle. It takes people that aren't in the city, as in at the edge of the map, and brings them into the city. And this is just done by creating a bus-only sort of road at the highway entrance or exit at the edge of the map. Now, I know there's not really necessarily a connection for citizens to go to, but somehow they just started appearing. Like, I made my line and they just came, so I'm not going to question that. It works, so I'm just going to leave it at that. All I did is kind of create this horseshoe, which comes from the right side, the right highway. There's a little ramp that goes above it, and then it just goes down and connects back to the other side of the highway. And you can put a line at the part that's not, you can add a stop at the part that's not elevated. So here I am, made the line. It's really just 2 stops. I make a stop at the terminal and I make a stop at the edge of the map. And that's it. It's just nice and quick. Citizens who need to go straight into the city can just do that. So a mistake I did while doing this is creating another stop at the other bus hub. And all that did is just make people who want to get from the downtown to that hub, they just took this shuttle bus instead of going from the edge of the map to downtown. In short, there are just a lot of null riders that I didn't want on this line. And now we get to the actual loops I'm making downtown. Just like last time, I'm just kind of weaving it through where I want it to go. I'm creating a clockwise loop and a counterclockwise loop because you don't, instead of people going all around, like for example, you have a person, right, and they need to go somewhere, which is 2 stops behind. The bus is not going to go backwards, it's going to keep going. So if they want to get to that stop, they're going to do an entire loop. So the workaround to that is just create a loop that goes into the opposite direction. They can just take that instead. And as you can see right now, we have a lot of those, not enough services or land value bubbles we have above a lot of the buildings. And creating this transit line just fixed it just like that in just a matter of minutes. Again, because this is a bus line, I left this at budget control. I didn't really mess around with it. I didn't really have to. Now, a little warning for those of you who said that the sped up footage made you a bit sick. The following few minutes are a bit sped up, so if you want, just skip through. All it is a parking lot. I chose to make this parking lot because I saw how many people actually needed to park. There were so many people and they were parking on the streets. There wasn't enough parking in downtown to the point that there would be traffic because people are all piling up to some parking garage. So I decided to create this large structure next to a main train station, the main train station, because that's pretty realistic. You're gonna have a lot of parking there because there's a lot of people who are gonna be commuting, going in and out of the city, different places, that sort of thing. And not only that, but I'm pretty sure people who don't even need to take the train might as well just park there. It doesn't really matter as long as the parking is being used. And it is in fact being used. I tried it out, I tested it, and it works just fine. I have so many people using it though, and if you're creating something like this, they might not. Make sure you have Advanced Vehicle Eye turned on if you're using Traffic Manager President Edition, and better parking. That'll just solve your issues like that. It'll make vehicles actually search for a parking spot. You can see that I actually just put ploppable asphalt everywhere, and that makes it look very uniform, and you can't really tell where vehicles are supposed to drive. So just to highlight those areas where more vehicles would be going, I put down these roadwear decals, also made by Ronix, I think, and they really do make it look a bit more realistic and a bit more interesting. Also, because I know this is going to be said, yes, I did space out the parking a bit too much, but I didn't want to have too much there because I'm not sure if as many vehicles as they want are going to be using it, so I did leave quite a bit of space between the parking areas. And now we're getting to a more interesting part, which is the metro. Metro is super fun, especially, and I completely recommend you get this. You should get the Metro Overhaul Mod. It's an amazing mod, and a new update just came out for it, version 2, and it fixes a lot of the glitches. There are new things like better bridges. It's more versatile. You have one-way tracks, different kind of platforms. It basically completely redoes the whole metro system, and I really do recommend you get it. So the first station that I put down is this Sunken Station, and I used Move It to kind of center it a bit and remove that road in the middle and change it to this 4-lane road. Don't worry if that ground on the side is bothering you, I'll change it back to a normal road after. And from there, I kind of just extended it because this was the station I really wanted to start from because it's on a nice grid, it's even, and it's downtown right next to the hub, so that's why. From there, I placed a few more stations before actually connecting them with the track, because I did want to have an idea of where the track would be going, of course, and that's always something you should do. Place your stations first. In my experience, subway stations should be spaced out less than train stations, because otherwise that would make each form of transport redundant. You can use one or the other. And what I like to do is make subways more convenient, and in general, in real life, the subway stations are less spaced out. They're more often, so people can get, they're more precise, essentially. People can get to more of where they want instead of, taking a stop that's even further away. Here, of course, I didn't have that much room to put more stops. I probably could have, but I think they would have been a bit too close. I might add some stops later if I need to, but for now, this was all I really wanted. I didn't want too much use out of the subway system for now. This was more of a proof of concept to make sure it would work. And if you are using Metro Overhaul Mod like me, then you do need to put down a depot, and that's exactly what I did. I placed down this depot that I found in the workshop, which the subway trains will come out of, and I made a few connections, made an underground connection and an above ground connection, because you'll see in a second that I will be creating an above ground stretch of track. Making lines is pretty much the same way as trams, except you don't need a loop. It's not like trains though, because you do need a depot. Pretty much the same way, but I'm just going to leave this in here in case you guys want to see exactly what I did for this line. Another speed warning here, gonna be a bit of sped up footage, and for those of you wondering, I don't really want to explain this next part of it. It's pretty straightforward. I'm just kind of adding more detail to my metro depot, creating a loop, and I'm also creating that elevated line I was talking about. Before this video ends, I'd also like to take a moment to thank all of you for 1,000 subscribers. It's been my dream for a while to get 100 subscribers, but 1,000 is just a whole nother thing, so again, thank you, and I'm gonna try and produce acceptable content for you guys. So, yeah, thank you. If you really like this episode, please leave a like. It really does let me know how good I'm doing. And leave a comment down below. I read all of them, and I love answering them. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like the video, subscribe. And, yeah, see ya.